CJ Peterson, and welcome to The Journey is Real. We talk to real people with real passions who share a real portion of their hearts. Today, my guest, if I can pronounce this correctly, is Vito Altavilla. Is that correct?
That's good. That's
Awesome.
correct. Yes.
Awesome. We're going to be talking about laughing through life. Thank you for coming on today, Vito.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
My pleasure. People say that laughter is the best medicine. How did this become a passion for you?
Actually, it started probably more than any other time in the fifth grade. I had other incidents earlier in life. They've taken on a lot of humor because of the passage of time. But in the fifth grade, it started. I became aware of the funny side of life when we moved out from Brooklyn to Queens, and we had a new neighbor. His name was Jerry Logan, and he suffered from Tourette's.
Mm-hmm.
And so I saw him. He looked about the same age, and I introduced myself. And he said, "Hello, my name is Jerry Logan." I said, "Oh," he said, "and I have Tourette's." I said, "Gee, that's terrible." He says, "It's not so bad once I know somebody." I said, "Okay." So anyway, it turns out we're the same age, and he's going to go to PS 138 just as I am, and he's going to be in the same class.
Mm-hmm.
And Jerry's a very, very smart guy, but he had this Tourette's, and the teacher would never call on him. He'd raise his hand for questions all the time. She would never be called because she was afraid he would take too long to answer. Until one day, no one else answered the question. He was the only one with his hand raised. And it had to do with the Revolutionary War and the Tea Party. And he's raising his hand like crazy. And teacher said, "Okay, Jerry, what do you know?" He says, "I know a lot about the Tea Party." She says, "Yeah." She says, "Yeah." He says, "Yeah, because of taxes, and the Patriots had to dress up like Indians because there were a lot of Patriots because there was a lot of damn tea. God damn it!" And then it went on like that. So it's cracking up the class. So and it went on like that for like 15 minutes. And finally, the class is over, and we're walking home. And I said, "Jerry," I said, that was great." He said, I put it on a little thick. I said, "How's that?" He says, "Well, when's the last time you had a chance to say 'son of a bitch' in class?" And and that's when I said, "You know." Huh?
So he took full advantage of it.
Oh yeah. And so it just made you look at things a little differently. It really impressed me that even with a disability, there was a humor in it, but it was an honest humor. It wasn't negative where it was hurt feelings or anything like that. It was just fun.
Mm-hmm.
And when that was, I never forgot it. And I'm a retired research industrial chemist, and consequently, I've given lectures all over the world on new technology. I have patents and all that kind of stuff. But every Friday morning, I get together with a bunch of guys from church, and we'd have breakfast. And everybody's swapping stories, older guys and so forth. And one of the guys said, "You have more stories than anyone else. You should write a book." I said, "Yeah." I said, and I took him up on it, and I wrote a book. And as you're writing it, and I'm going back to almost a time like when I was 7 or 8 years old, as I began writing, I started getting a flood with a lot of memories coming back.
Mm-hmm.
It was like unending. It just never stopped. Mm-hmm. And so when I had the first draft, I gave my wife, and she says, "You never told me this." I said, "There's a lot of things I didn't tell you, but
There's a lot of life to go over."
Yeah. But and it just kept going on. And it's funny because we've read it so many times, and we'd all start laughing, and my kids would look at it and say, "Dad, did that really happen? Did that really happen?" I said, what people don't understand today, and what was fun writing the book, is that it was writing like almost like a Twilight Zone.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really very different time.
Mm-hmm.
Very different. There was an innocence.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we talking 47, 48. My mother took me with a with her to visit a friend, and you walked about 3 or 4 blocks. Everybody walked in those days. Most people didn't have a car because it was convenient. Just the
Yeah.
bus and the train were there, the subway, it was no
Well, and
problem.
in New York City, it's a completely different lifestyle than somebody who lives in the country. I mean,
Oh yeah, it was really totally different.
Mhm.
But we were Garrison Beach was kind of unique. It's a part of Brooklyn that's they refer to it as the seashore in the city because it was only really 13 miles to Manhattan. One stop on the bus, you get on the subway, in 10 minutes you're in the middle of the city.
Wow.
So it was kind of convenient. Dad bought a house for $500 down and a $2,000 mortgage, and it was a little run down. And all the neighbors pitched in. The plumber, Bruce, the plumber would check the pipes. Jimmy, the carpenter, would take care of this here, and then the roofer had extra shingles, and he fixed it. Within a week and a half, the house was like new.
Nice.
And there's no charge for that. That's just the neighborly thing you did, So anyway, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but so my mother takes me with her to show you the innocence at the time. 7 or 8 years old, we thought, or I certainly thought, most kids my age thought, is that the only difference between boys and girls is boys had short hair and wore pants, and girls had long hair and wore dresses. And girls didn't wear slacks in those days; they always wore dresses. And my mother's visiting this friend, and she knocks on the screen door, and her friend Jean says, "Come on in. I'm just toweling off my daughter. She just, after a bath." And I went in before my mother, and as I did, Jean drops the towel, and I'm in absolute shock. I see a girl, and this part's missing. And I said, "Mom, she can't pee. It's missing. How's she going to go?" And my mother said, I'll explain it to you when you get home. This is 7 years old, okay?
Yeah.
You don't know. They
No,
didn't have,
but trying to
communications weren't like they are today. Well, it gets, as I'm writing this, I'm starting to laugh more. My wife she says, "Were you that stupid?" I said, "No, you got to understand. It was the times. It really was the times." And so we get home. I said, "Okay, Ma, what is it?" She says, "Listen, what you have is not called a pee-pee, it's called a penis. And if you don't have it, it's called a vagina." I says, "Yeah, boy," she's that's enough. The rest you'll understand when you get older. He says, I said, I was more confused than ever. So I see my friend Maddie outside. We
Oh,
were
no.
hooking up to play a game of catch. I said, "Hey, Maddie, you'd never guess what I saw today." And I tell him what I saw. He says, "That's not possible. How is she going to pee? It's the same thing." He said, he said, "Well, listen," he said, "I'm going to go get my baseball glove, but I'll ask my mother if she knows what a vagina is." And 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 that was and then we went out and played baseball. We played catch. So I mean,
And you never looked at
it
girls
was
the same.
well. You know, keep in mind, there's no computers. Okay,
Mhm.
no television until the mid-50s. Okay, uh, you went to school, you came home, you changed your clothes, you went out and played until somebody's mother said it's dinner time. And everybody would split and have
And if
dinner.
you
You
didn't
did
have
your homework.
if you didn't have a baby sister, you're not gonna know.
No, no, it's impossible. And even then, even if you had a sister, things were nobody knew. The guy, you never talked about things like that. It just never came up. And we had so. You did your homework, you listen maybe to the radio a little bit, and you go to bed, repeat. That was basically it. You made up your own games. Somebody asked me, "Did you know what stoop ball was?" Stoop ball took a ball like a tennis ball, and if you had steps, you try to get it on the edge, and the ball would fly out, and depending how far it went, it would be a base hit or what have you. Stick ball, we learned how to bat because you stole somebody else's mop handle. You couldn't use your own, and you drew a square on a wall,
Mhm.
and if the ball landed in the square, it was a strike. If it didn't, it was a ball. But you learned to hit that ball, which was about the size of a baseball, with a stick, which was an inch thick.
Yeah, I mean,
So you really learned how to.
even
Huh?
growing up, we had apple trees and we'd play apple smear, which is you take a tennis racket and basically it's softball with an apple.
Yeah. You made up your own games, and as you get older, it was you know, even to the extent in one time Mr. Mahoney, the neighbor from us, he had a big weeping willow tree and was leaning towards the house. So he was getting nervous about it, and he called up some of the neighbors, and everybody pitched in, and they took the tree down, all hand saws, no chainsaws,
Mhm.
but all of us had chances to get a branch and make a bow out of it. And so with that, and then there was a little swamp area, you could get reeds and make your arrows.
Mhm.
And then you stole the caps from there was a couple of blocks away, they had some cars, and you could steal the caps from where you put the air in. And so you got tar from the street because it was warm, and you put that tip on, and you had twine for the string, which from butcher's twine that came from Louis the Butcher, and we had bow and arrows. Those arrows would go 100 yards, and we're
Yeah.
like 8 years old that we could do this.
And the creativity of, just coming up with that at that
Oh,
age was phenomenal. They're too busy on their iPads now. It gets frustrating watching the younger generations come up because it's like, where is your creativity?
oh yeah. Well, the thing is you get carried away sometimes. And I wanted to get a slingshot, make a slingshot too, and I found the right piece of wood,
Mhm.
but I needed the right rubber. Now you could use old tires, but they didn't stretch that much. But my mother had a rubber girdle,
Oh, gee.
and I yelled at a loud whisper, and she didn't hear me. And I remember taking the girdle and slicing it with the scissors, and then I hid it so she could never find it. That is to another story. But anyway, my rubber came from a girdle, but then I needed a pouch, and I couldn't get the right kind of pouch. And my friend Maddie tells me, he says, the nuns do their wash on Thursdays. He
Oh
says,
no.
he said, they got all these little things. He said, I think they call them brassieres. He said, they got different sizes on the line. He says, you might be able to get something. So I go running over there, and I have to shimmy up a pole, and I see, oh, I got the right size pouch. And so I grab it, and then I put it in my pocket, and I run away. But I yanked the clothesline, and the whole thing fell down because the priest was yelling about who did this and there's a reward and all this other kind of stuff, and they're going to go to hell. I personally didn't really care because I had my pouches for my slingshot. So
Oh geez. That sounds like so all of this is in your book, right? You have a book that's out?
yeah, it's all in the book. Yeah, in fact, one of the things, uh, one of the after I did the first book, I said, somebody said you should start writing a screenplay. So I started, but I sent the book out to a few different people, and two of them gave me an answer. One was Ken Burns,
Mhm.
and I got the letter, and I kept the letter with the envelope, and it wasn't an email; it was an actual letter. And his producer said they think that you had the basis here for perhaps making a movie.
Mhm.
I said, oh my gosh! And then I got a call, believe it or not, from uh, Jay Leno's secretary.
Really?
And and she said, Mr. Leno told me to tell you that just keep doing what you're doing. But he doesn't use anybody else's creativity, just his own. But just stick with it. Is all you need is one person to get that break,
Mhm.
which was really nice. I mean, there was an actual
That's very
telephone.
sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. So I figured now I'm motivated. Forget the sequel, man. I'm going to write a screenplay.
There
So
you go. Well,
so
you
I
have
get a book
plenty
on
more
the
to
screen.
do. I mean, if you can get
I get,
people laughing and crying and take them back to an age of innocence, it might spark something in the younger generations even. You know,
well, I tell you,
I'm
I
30 now.
wrote.
My parents were 88 and 89 when they passed, and they just passed this last year and two. And you guys are like the biggest, baddest generation out there. And the wisdom that you guys have is like hands down next to none. And so, I mean, as you guys get older, it's my parents passed. My dad passed in July 2019. My mom just passed in January. And the stories that they had and the different things that they learned and through their time, and it's just like that's gone now.
I'll tell you something funny. I gave it a book to my cardiologist as well. Okay, so because now you get checkups all the time, and I'm a really, really very, very healthy kind of guy. I work out 3 times a week and all that kind of good stuff. It was something I did most of my life anyway.
Mhm.
But she went on a holiday with her parents, and she said her father was laughing out loud, and her mother wanted to know what it was. He says, you read the book when I finish with it." She bought a second book. She said, and I found that people like from 40 on up, the older they got, the harder they laughed. The older the people, yeah,
It's
it's
like going
funny.
back to a generation to their, them growing up. It's like now
Well,
my generation, it's the same thing for Stranger Things, which is this Netflix show. And it's like it's taking place in the 1980s. So there's a lot of nostalgia and things of like, oh, I
oh
remember
sure,
that. I remember that. I remember that.
oh yeah. Well, the thing is that even when you went on a date, dating has a different connotation today.
Mhm.
When we went on a date, you got on a bus. You took the bus ride to where the girl was. Then you met her parents. Then you picked up, then you had two fares. You started with $15, okay?
Mhm.
You were flush, okay? $15. So now you so now you got two bus fares. Now you gotta go get the movie theater. Now you gotta pay for two tickets, right? So now you're down about $4.50 already. And then she wants popcorn and a soda. And then I said, I don't want any. I'm on the diet. It's some story like that. I don't want to spend the money. So now the only place you could go and make out in those days was teenagers were all in the balcony
Mhm.
because that's the only place you could make out. Nobody had any money for doing anything more than that anyway. So I remember like it was yesterday. I put my arm around her. She says, "Don't bother me until I finish my popcorn." I figured, oh, yeah. I'm
Oh
out
no.
$4.50. I haven't even had a kiss, huh?
I said, no way.
Yeah. Well, here comes a big shock to me. She finishes the popcorn. We start kissing and hugging and so forth. And after about 10 minutes, she stands up. And I swear to you, she stands up and one breast is here and the other one is near her stomach. And I go, oh, she says, I have to freshen up. And I'm going, I said, I'm getting, I'm feeling romantic. I'm actually feeling romantic with foam rubber. Then there was nothing that was real. One
Oh,
was high and one was low. She comes back, goes, everything is back in place. And I go, ugh. Anyway, the rest of the evening was sort of kind of dull. But I'll tell you, one of the, in those days, the YMCA had, oh gosh, YMCA had dances
uh-huh.
on Saturdays for teenagers from 3 o'clock in the afternoon until maybe 6:30, something like that. And excuse me, and we had and they had little round tables with checkerboard tablecloths that would go to the floor, and it was it was a thing, okay.
Mhm.
And a lot of teenagers would congregate, and you come in and they play pipe in the music. It was band music and so forth. It
Mhm.
was nice. And so I meet my friends there, and I remember saying, I said, gee, I see this little girl in the corner. I said, gosh, she's cute. I'm going to ask her to dance. He said, okay, well, I said, what about you guys? We're going to look around a little bit. I said, okay. Well, I go over to her and I introduce myself, and I said, would you like to dance? And she says, yeah. She stands up, and she's exactly the same height as she was sitting down. I go, I had asked the little person at that time, we call them midgets, but I had asked the little person to dance. The top of her head is equal with my belt buckle.
Oh, geez.
And I'm going, and it's a slow song. I'm going, so what I did, I remember trying to put my arm up against my side so my arms will look shorter, and where your hand would be behind a girl's waist, now it's behind her head. So I'm like this, and dancing slow, but I could feel her breath.
Mhm.
And the more she would breathe, the further I would stick my butt out, and I stick it. By the time the song is over, I'm looking at my friends. Oh shoot, excuse me. They're laughing. They can't stop laughing. They said, "Your butt was out so far, you look like a horizontal V." And I mean, oh,
There's just so much innocence at that age and so much
it
like that.
really was.
And it lets people know that, you know what, they're not alone in all their awkwardness and growing up. So, we have a
Oh,
few minutes left. Is there anything you would like to add?
excuse me.
We only have a few minutes left. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Oh, yeah, I suggest that, check my website. It's itbeganinbrooklyn.com.
Mhm.
I suggest you, if you want to buy the book, an electronic copy, use the publisher, Book Baby.
Mhm.
Uh, you'll get it. You'll probably save a few bucks on it as well.
Mhm.
You'll certainly get it faster. Uh, and they're just a terrific little company to work with. And but if you want to laugh a lot, and I'll leave you with one thought. Based on that, I did finish the screenplay, by the way,
Oh, good.
and it's been sent out to movie producers and all that kind of stuff and so forth. So we're waiting to see what happens. But if you want to laugh a lot and in an innocent way, okay, it was just a different time, a very, very different time.
I think it's sweet though. Thank you for coming on today, Vito. You were a real joy and a real treat to talk to. I really appreciate it. For those,
Thank you.
you're welcome. For those who want to know more about Vito, you can find him at itbeganinbrooklyn.com. That's itbeganinbrooklyn.com. And thank you guys for listening to The Journey is Real. We talk to real people with real passions who share a real portion of their hearts. I'm CJ Peterson of cjpetersonwrites.com. Until next time.